Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We begin today with the wheat crop and some tools to help out producers with their input costs. Here's SUNUP's Austin Moore.
What I hear across the state is you're up in Ottawa County. That's the county that gets all the rain. Yeah, we are blessed with a little bit more rain probably than everybody else, but we're still pretty serious condition.
In Ottawa County, Extension Ag and 4-H educator Jeff Parmley gave me a rundown on their drought situation.
We ended up the year short of moisture just like everyone else. We're actually behind a little bit right now, but the rains we have has been very timely and kind of hit right when everything needed it.
Parmley joined me on a visit to Brent Rendell's farm, just outside Miami, Oklahoma.
We were in this same condition last year, and I had what I would consider a complete failure on corn and about a half failure on my soybeans.
Really?
So we can go from great conditions to really bad in a hurry. The nice thing is we're entering winter, going to enter in spring at a pretty decent shape.
And taking advantage of that condition is why we are here. I wanted to look at what Rendell is using to make the most of his wheat stand.
You've got a couple of enriched strips you want to show us today. This is the first one, and I'm sorry, other than this flag right here, I don't see it.
And that is exactly right. This flag marks a starting point going for about 300 feet, that direction, 10 feet wide, where I applied 150 pounds of nitrogen shortly after planting. The rest of this field only got what I put down at planting, which was 25 pounds of nitrogen. You'd say, well, if you put down 150 pounds of nitrogen more than the rest of the field, where is it? And the answer is, it doesn't need it.
Right, plant's not using it.
The plant's not using it. This wheat was planted on a failed corn crop. Last year's corn got plenty of nitrogen and then didn't use it. So as the stalks break down and everything starts mineralizing, you start recapturing some nitrogen. The question is how much? And the only way to know that is by putting out a nitrogen-rich strip. Now you can use a green seeker and optically sense the difference, or you can use your own eye and look at it. Now me looking at this, I don't see any difference. The truth though is, we can see what the green seeker says, and it'll tell us what the difference is between here and right over there.
And so we took a walk, holding the sensor nice and level. One reading walking the length of the enriched strip, and a second walking the same distance on an untreated portion of the field.
As we kind of expect here, the numbers look pretty consistent.
The numbers are very consistent. There's a little bit lower number here, but certainly nothing out of the ordinary. Let off the trigger, and it gives me an average of 0.79. So I've got 0.81 there, and I've got a 0.79 here. There's actually a computer program then that I can go in on the nitrogen utilization efficiency website, and I can plug those two numbers in along with the planting date for this variety, and it will tell me whether or not I need to add any nitrogen and how much I should add.
Very good. Let's go over and take a look at this other field, the one that you say that there's a very clear enriched strip. Exactly.
1.5 miles straight east of here, we'll go to another field, and you're going to see something completely different.
All right, so here we really can see a very dramatic difference. You know, as we step off the enriched strip, it's a lot thinner, a lot fuller, lusher wheat here.
That's right, and you know, in a good growing season like this that we've had to date, it's a little harder to tell, but I mean, if you look at it, especially from a distance, you can really see the difference here. And I tell you what, when you go to the green seeker, it's even more obvious. The last field that we were at, the difference between my heavy nitrogen area and the rest of the field was only a difference of 0.02.
Right.
Here, the difference between one and the other one is 0.12. Now, those numbers really don't mean a whole lot until you start getting into the nitrogen system. But basically it means in the last field we were in, which is the exact same variety, under the exact same rotation, with the exact same fertility program, no top dress nitrogen was required. Here, 1.5 miles difference, 1 day planting difference, this field needs 50 pounds of nitrogen per acre.
So what does that mean to you in terms of savings in your operation?
Well, in the last field, I'm going to save $3,000 versus what I would normally do. In this field, I'm still going to apply some nitrogen, but I'm not going to apply anywhere near the thumb rule rate of 2 pounds per acre per bushel of yield goal. Normally on a field like this, I'd be top dressing it at about 75 pounds of nitrogen per acre. And as I said, this one's going to end up with about 50.
So you're saving money even here where you're going to put it out.
Even here where I'm going to put it out. I've looked at the data over the last, basically I've been doing the Green Seeker program for almost 10 years now. My average savings is between $12 and $18 per acre on wheat.
Nitrogen fertilizer rivals land cost on total inputs in most farming systems. The only other one that may come in is diesel cost. So nitrogen and fertilizer inputs are one of the highest inputs that an average producer deals with.
Brian Arnall is an extension soil nutrient specialist with Oklahoma State University. He explains that even in this dry year, the nitrogen situation across our state remains field by field.
First, we look at how much pre-plant was put down with the seed. If there wasn't any pre-plant nitrogen put down, I'm still giving a recommendation, let's put down some nitrogen just to make sure that crop has something, unless we're near already a loss. So if there's still potential in it, get some down. But because of the lack of rain, because of the lack of tillering in many locations, we're reducing that nitrogen rate. What we're trying to avoid is this over-fertilization when we know the likelihood of getting to maximum yield is just not there this year. So reducing the inputs this year to save on that a little bit, but still make sure that there's something there for these rains that we do get, just to make sure that we aren't losing the potential yield.
And Arnall has advice on how to fertilize as well.
Getting in front of rain is important if we're using urea. If we're going with liquid, streamer nozzles are always preferred to get better soil to fertilizer contact, but it is possible to go with a flat fan if you're mixing in a herbicide.
All important advice, because this year, controlling cost may be the key to profit. For SUNUP, I'm Austin Moore.
It's long been recognized that one of the greatest causes of calf mortality is when the cow or heifer has a difficult birth, a difficult delivery process, especially one that takes several hours. Well, we also know now that one of the hidden costs of these long delivery processes, difficult births, is the reproductive performance of those cattle the next year. Research has been done that's taken a pretty good look at this. One trial has suggested that there was a 16% reduction in pregnancy rates the next year in those cattle that had a difficult birth. And of those that did get pregnant, the average calving date the following year was 13 days later. So again, there's a hidden cost to the process where we have a difficult birth this spring. A more convincing trial, I think, comes from Montana several years ago. And what they looked at was two-year-old heifers, those that got early assistance. And by early assistance, within about 1 hour of when they first saw the water bag or the baby calf's feet, and they gave those heifers the assistance so that the delivery process only took about an hour. And compared that to heifers that they allowed to just continue to go through labor and only give them assistance after 2 hours. What they found was the ones that got the early assistance, there was about a 17% increase in the percentage of those cattle that were cycling at the start of the next breeding season, and perhaps more importantly, a 20% increase in pregnancy rates in favor of those that got the early assistance. So as we're watching cows, and especially two-year-old heifers during this calving season, let's keep in mind that we don't want this calving process to go on for several hours, especially those two-year-olds. If we're observing them and they're not making progress within 1 hour after we first see a water bag or baby feet, then we probably better bring her up and examine her. We want to make certain that the cervix is completely dilated before we actually go into the process of putting on the chains and pulling that calf. Otherwise, then we can cause more damage than good. But I think the bottom line is that allowing these heifers especially to go on for hour after hour after hour in the delivery process only serves to jeopardize the health of the calf and is going to impair the reproductive performance of that heifer in the upcoming breeding season. Keep that in mind as we go through this calving season. And we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
After 2 years of drought, options are growing even more limited for cow-calf producers. Joining us now is Darrell Peel, our livestock marketing specialist. And Darrell, what are some of your concerns right now?
Well, an awful lot of producers going through the winter are, rapidly running out of feed and or water, and they're going to have to make some decisions very soon. And a lot of producers, I think, are trying to hang on until we get to March or early April, when we should start to see signs of spring, if it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, I think those producers face some critical decisions. So, for example, fall calving cow-calf producers, have calves that have been on the ground for a while. They're a little bit bigger. It's relatively easy for them to go ahead and wean those calves at any time if they have to sell the cows. Then put together a program, perhaps a confinement program, to feed those calves a bit and see if they have enough grass to work with for the summer.
Okay, and then looking forward to the spring calving cows, concerns there as well.
The spring calving producers, I think it's a little bit trickier because a lot of those producers are just now beginning to calve, in the next month or so. It's possible to sell those calves or to wean those calves very early. And do the same thing with them. It takes more management on those little bitty calves to keep them in confinement. One of the reasons to consider this option is simply because right now cull cow prices are relatively strong, and relative to that price, the prices for bred cows and cow-calf pairs is not too much above that. And it may get worse as we go into March and April if there's continued drought conditions. So there's very little premium for that baby calf if you sell it with the cow, potentially in early April, say. If you can go ahead and wean that calf and put together a management program to keep that calf, grow it up for a couple months and see if you get enough grass to go at least partway into the summer with it, you can do a lot to salvage the value of that calf crop, even if you have to go ahead and cull the cows. If for producers that are completely out of feed options for the cows, they may have to work out a temporary program to keep those cows an extra, say, 30 or 40 days in order to get to a point where they can wean those little bitty calves and get them into this early weaning program.
And it sounds like planning is really the key here if you want to stay in this business.
I think so. Producers need to make plans now and make arrangements for the feed, for financing if necessary, and then they're going to need to work with specialists, nutritionists, or animal scientists. Our extension folks are a great resource to help producers put together a management plan to keep these calves.
Okay, Darrell Peel, thanks a lot. And if you need some help coming up with a plan, be sure to contact your local county extension educator. Your local county extension office also has registration forms for the annual Eastern Oklahoma Beef Cattle Summit. It's Tuesday, March 26th at the Southeast Expo Center in McAllister. Oklahoma Cooperative Extension specialists and industry leaders will look at what's trending right now in the cattle business. Everything from cow-calf health issues to replacement heifers to the financial outlook. Registration is $10 for the day-long event, which also features lunch, a trade show, and door prizes. For more information, just go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Hi, welcome to Shop Stop. Today we want to talk a little bit about springs and some of the different things that you can use to select those.
Okay, what they refer to as a spring constant, and what that means is however much weight you put on that spring moves.
Yeah, so springs come in a lot of different sizes and shapes, but that's the main factor that we look at is how many pounds does it take, or how much force does it take to deflect it a certain amount. And so usually your spring constant would be in pounds per inch.
So what we'll do is we've got a spring here, and we're going to add weight, and then we're going to show you the displacement, and that should give us a spring constant. So
right now I think it's at 6 inches.
Yes.
And so if we put 10 pounds on it,
we've gone to 5 1/4 inches.
So we've basically deflected it 3/4 of an inch for 10 pounds.
So what that would mean, like if you had a scale, it would mean that every 3/4 of an inch of that spring would be an additional 10 pounds.
So those are the things to look at when you're looking at springs, is look at that K factor that's spec'd in the catalog.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Shop Stop.
Kim Anderson, our grain marketing specialist, joins us now. Kim, we got some much needed moisture across Oklahoma this week, but you say some producers may not actually be such a good thing. How so?
Well, the producers that have fields, and there's quite a few of them that the seeds haven't germinated yet, this moisture may cause them to germinate. It's late in the season for germination. The odds are, from what I understand from plant soil science specialists, that the odds of making a yield from that is pretty small. It could create some problems with crop insurance. Now, I'm not for sure about that, but it's something to look into. However, the fields that are looking like this, that are up, that's got some stand in it, this is a godsend for them. This is good, timely moisture. It can set them up for coming out of dormancy, and it could create the atmosphere for some average or better yields.
We've been talking a lot the last few weeks about prices breaking that support level. They did. Now the big question, what's next?
Well, I started to say I was glad they did. I'm not glad they're going lower, but you know, we've been talking about them breaking that and expected them to. They broke the $8 level. The next support level down there was $7.75. We're toying with that right now. If we break through that, we're going down to $7.62. The support levels are down around 20 to 25 cents each move, and it's kind of ragged stair step as it's going down. With the some recent information and this moisture, then the odds are that it's going to continue to go on down, but slowly and a little about 25-cent move at a time.
Okay, let's talk about USDA production estimates. Understand a few surprises there?
Yeah, the USDA had their Ag Forum, which they have in February. Now, these are not official estimates. It's just kind of their best guess at this point in time. It's not based on any surveys. They've got wheat planted acres at 56 million acres for all U.S. wheat, compared to about 55.7 last year, so just a few more acres there. But their production was estimated to be 2.1 billion bushels compared to 2.3 billion last year. So slightly more acres, but with the drought and the problems with the winter wheat crop, less production there. If you look at ending stocks projected for the 2013-14 crop year, in other words, as of May 31 of 2014, 733 million bushels, about the same as it is now, so not much change, but they're also predicting slightly lower prices.
Okay, what about corn and soybeans?
Corn's a big surprise. You know, we've been talking about 99 million plus acres planted. Well, they came in at 96.5 million acres, less than last year's 97.2, but they came in with record high yields and production at 14.5 billion, and compared to 10.8 last year, and ending stocks at 2 billion.
Okay, and soybeans?
Soybeans, about the same acres as last year, 3.4 billion bushels compared to 3 last year.
Okay, and one last quick question, prices for 2013 harvested wheat?
I think wheat prices will probably be lower than last year and probably slightly lower than they're offering right now.
Okay, Kim Anderson, we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. Wednesday and Thursday were white-knuckle driving days. Thursday morning saw a line of storms move across the state, while temperatures were at 32 degrees or lower in the northern half of the state. The Mesonet Oklahoma radar with freeze lines is a handy way to check where it's important to take extra travel precautions. The blue shading behind the freeze line indicates where air temperatures are below freezing, while the radar shows where the precipitation is falling. An air temperature map from Thursday morning generally had temperatures at 32 degrees or lower north and west of a line from Altus to Lawton to Norman to Muskogee to Grove. Temperatures in and near the Panhandle were in the 20s. The widespread rain and snow in Oklahoma this week gave us another precipitation event where every one of the 120 Mesonet sites reported precipitation. Most of a 2-day rainfall map through Thursday morning was colored green, indicating rain and snow amounts above 3/4 of an inch. Not all of the rain gauge numbers matched the radar estimates on this map because much of the northern precipitation came as ice or snow. The Mesonet rain gauges are not heated, so any snow or ice collected has to melt before being recorded. As of Thursday morning, the highest recorded precipitation was at Byers in the northeast corner of Garvin County, coming in at 1 84/100 inches. A National Weather Service forecast tool that helps farmers and ranchers make the most of rain events like this latest one are nationwide maps of forecasted rainfall. These forecast precipitation maps show amounts for each of the next 3 days and combined maps for up to 5 days. The forecast precipitation map for Wednesday showed the highest precipitation was forecasted to be in Texas and stretch on into Oklahoma. Thursday showed continuing moisture, but the center was forecasted to move east of Oklahoma. Friday's map showed the system past Oklahoma and in the eastern U.S. A forecast map from Wednesday through Sunday estimated storm totals to be in the range of 1 to 1.5 inches for much of Oklahoma. While forecasted amounts varied somewhat from our actual recorded rainfall, these maps provided a close approximation of the amounts of moisture we had from this latest storm event. Knowing moisture amounts ahead of time lets farmers and ranchers know if there will be enough moisture to move fertilizer or herbicide into the soil. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to being with you again for another Mesonet Weather Report.
Finally today, Dave Deacon takes a look at a challenge many livestock producers are facing.
Animals really need two things to live. And during a drought, you may see the dried forage and wonder what the livestock will eat. But you also have to remember that cattle do drink a lot of water.
The rule of thumb is you can just think 5, 6, 7, 8. A 500-pound steer or heifer requires about 5 gallons a day in the wintertime. 750-pound steer, about 6 gallons. A 1,100-pound dry cow, about 7 gallons. And then a 1,100-pound lactating cow requires around 8 gallons. And then when it gets to summertime and the temperature gets up around 90 degrees and above, they require more than twice that amount.
Multiply those numbers by even a small herd of 20 or 30 cattle, and a small pond starts to look even smaller. But the problem is not volume alone.
You know, as the depth of the water declines and the cattle are walking into the pond to drink, you know, they're probably stirring up the sediment there. And so, you know, I guess my rule of thumb is that if the water looks really bad and smells really bad, it's probably already to the point where the cattle have reduced their consumption of water.
And that's why Lahman suggests a water quality test.
Most of the commercial and the university laboratories can do a water quality test for a minimal fee. Most water quality tests are going to report the total soluble salts, which is just an indication of the dissolved minerals in the water. And you'd like for that to be under 1,000 milligrams per liter for livestock, for them to, you know, maintain consumption and also to stay healthy. When you get around 3,000 milligrams per liter, you could start to see some health issues and perhaps some toxicity issues.
The quality of water is just one thing to think of.
The physical aspect is one we probably haven't considered enough, because if you see mud up around the hocks and above, you know, the belly, the udder, the brisket, the animals are really having to struggle to get to water, and it's probably past time to move them to a different water source. If you don't have an alternative and the water supply continues to shrink, it's probably better to do something, even if that means marketing the animals sooner rather than later.
Of course, the ponds are not just about livestock. They are important to wildlife and fish as well.
Fish don't need 10 feet of water. They don't even need 5 feet of water, but they do need good quality water. Fish can survive in a few feet of good quality water. We begin to be worried when we see that the pond is choked with aquatic vegetation, or we have an excessive amount of algae in the pond, making it a very dense green color. those things can lead to low oxygen problems that can kill a fish population.
Extension aquacultural specialist Marley Beam tells us there isn't much we can do to change the pond's fate, but there may be opportunities still.
Generally in Oklahoma, we just have to live through these drought periods and see if there isn't some kind of silver lining that goes along with it. Perhaps this is the opportunity that you need to totally eliminate a nuisance fish population with carp or something else that's undesirable. Let the pond dry out, let the bottom crack, and when the drought is over, restock it with bass and bluegill and channel catfish as the fisheries biologists recommend.
And maybe even time to reshape that pond.
If you can restore some storage volume capacity to the pond, and it's affordable to do so, it's probably a good idea, but I always steer people towards the Natural Resource Conservation Service to get their input. They're the local experts on costs and soils and all those factors.
Long term, I think it's a wonderful idea to fence ponds and put a frost-free tank and a water line through the dam so that the cattle aren't, tramping out through the pond in the heat of the summer trying to cool off and defecating in the pond and so on, reducing water quality.
So while we wait for even more rain, we can be planning for the future. For SUNUP, I'm Dave Deacon.
Thanks so much for joining us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime online at sunup.okstate.edu. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next time at SUNUP.